Let me move now from the youth representative to UNESCO, and who leads or had the on their shoulder this responsibility to lead on education globally and more specifically on education for peace. And we really have the chance having with us Ms. Simona-Mirela Miculescu, who is the president of the 42nd UNESCO General Conference, coming from Romania here, but next week in Bangkok also for another important event, the Global Forum, UNESCO Global Forum on AI ethics also, which is another challenge that has an impact on both peace and education. My question to you, and you will answer the way you want this, is peace still the most or the strongest weapon to create? Is education, sorry, is still the strongest weapon to create peace, to make peace? Because this is the key question now. We are talking about education to empower ethical leaders, and the outcome we want to see is peace. So, floor is yours, and thank you in advance.
Thank you very much, Fadi. Dear colleagues in the panel, esteemed participants, I didn't press the button. Sometimes in life you don't press the right button. It's true. So, dear colleagues, panelists, dear esteemed participants, it was such a joy from all the points of view to listen to Joy, because she is actually an example of the fact that youth is not only the future, our future, it is our present. They are our present leaders who have a word in everything that's important in this world. Well, my dear Fadi, I wouldn't choose the word weapon for clear reasons. I think that education is actually the best tool to build peace. And actually, whatever UNESCO does is about education for peace, because I'm sure that many of you know the first sentence of the Constitution that I also mentioned in my inaugural, in my speech at the beginning. Since war began in the minds of man, it is in the minds of man that the defenses of peace have to be built. This is exactly what we have been doing for 80 years. Of course, I represent here the member states, not the secretariat, but we all work together in order to achieve this. So first of all, I want to begin by thanking the organizers, because this is quite a meaningful panel. Because how can you foster ethical societies without first cultivating the ethical principles and the ethical leadership through education, both formal and informal? And as we are graciously hosted by the Chamber of Deputies, allow me to begin with a quote. Ambassadors always have quotes, because they are running in an intellectual effervescence, and they are picking up memorable things from everywhere. And there is a visionary Italian educator called Maria Montessori that I adore, not only because my grandchildren are also at the Montessori school, but she was a visionary. And she said, but in Italian it sounds beautiful, costruire la pace è l'opera dell'educazione, la politica
building peace is the work of education and politics.
Result of education, all politics can do is to keep us away from war, right? So indeed, education shapes how we see the world and how we see one another, because this is also very important. We seem to have forgotten to see each other. It determines whether we learn to fear our differences or to value them, whether we meet disputes with violence or with understanding and tolerance. So what if the true purpose of education was not only to prepare us to know the world, but to also care for the world, to learn how to care for it, to care for ourselves, for the others, for our planet, for the humanity we all share, right? And let me mention here that at the UN Transforming Education Summit recently, a couple of years ago, the international community committed to placing the resilience, the well-being, and dignity of learners at the center of education systems. But what I want to talk to you about is something that I also mentioned in my speech in November 2023, and I'm proud because it was under my presidency. After a 2-year complex technical and intergovernmental consultative process, the 194 members of UNESCO adopted a unique, the first and until now unique global instrument, the Recommendation on the Education for Peace, Human Rights, and Sustainable Development. And this new recommendation is actually a comprehensive framework to reimagine the entire education ecosystem in light of today's complex challenges we all feel, unfortunately, from the climate crisis to social fragmentation, from digital disruption to armed conflicts. And it is a powerful call to action to transform education in a true force tool of peace. I cannot miss this opportunity to tell you a little bit what makes this recommendation unique, because you are here representing your countries, and we need to have this recommendation implemented at the national levels. So, first of all, it is unique because it lays out 14 guiding principles, key learning outcomes, and priority action areas, from national laws and curricula to teacher training, school environments, and assessment. Is the first time that such an instrument promotes competencies such as empathy, critical thinking, intercultural understanding. I see the interest of the youth. That's essential. Environmental stewardship, right? Alongside, of course, literacy and numeracy. Third, it recognizes all forms of learning in and out of schools, across the lifespan and across sectors as relevant to peace building. It reinforces gender equality, which is, you might know, one of the transversal priorities of UNESCO. Gender equality being actually a pillar of educational equity and peace. It applies to a wide range of actors, you of course included, policymakers, educators, legislators, youth workers, cultural leaders, and of course civil society. And what I loved about it, it brings a modern vision of peace. Not merely, peace is for us not merely the absence of conflict. No, not only that. It is a dynamic, participatory process rooted in human dignity, human rights, coexistence, and solidarity. And this recommendation now adopted is at the disposal of all countries to be implemented. And I would like just to mention two areas in which we need a lot of urgent work. And tell me, Joy, if you agree. First of all, the digital lives of our youth, because there is a very intense digital life of our youths. Today's young people inhabit digital spaces at least as much as physical ones, if not much more, right? So yet while high quality, violence-oriented video games are widely available and free, educational games that promote the values that I mentioned, empathy, cooperation, critical thinking, remain few. And most often underdeveloped. So I think that we must bridge this gap. You know very well the power of games. You know very well, you are all brothers, sisters, parents, grandparents, and you're desperate about, you know, the passion of our kids and grandkids for games. Well, let's bridge this gap by investing alongside the private sector in engaging digital content that inspires ethical imagination and peaceful values from the earliest age possible. Second, what and how we teach history. Across the world, school curricula often offer contrasting and at times conflicting accounts of the same historical events. And when education presents a single exclusionary narrative, it risks deepening divides rather than healing them. And peaceful societies are built when history, education embraces complexity, encourages critical thinking, and invites learners to explore multiple perspectives. And teaching history in this way is not about erasing differences, but about fostering mutual understanding and shared responsibility. So therefore, our colleagues, representatives of the parliaments, I conclude in 1 minute. You have a key role to play in 3 and I have just 3 quick points. In legislating inclusive education systems that embed peace and human rights as core objectives, in allocating sufficient resources for teacher training, school safety, and innovative pedagogy. And third, in fostering digital and physical environments where all learners feel safe, respected, and empowered. I would stop here.
Wonderful.
Thank you.